1805, and the Austrian army is on the march against Napoleon. It didn't go great. The man leading this army was Francis II, the Holy Roman Emperor. He was also the Emperor of Austria, a title he created in response to Napoleon declaring himself the Emperor of France because he wasn't about to be out-emperored by anyone. So, as far as empires go, the Austrian Empire was fairly run-of-the-mill. The Holy Roman Empire, however, was not so normal. It was comprised of hundreds of mostly German-speaking states who swore allegiance to an emperor. The most powerful state in the Holy Roman Empire was Austria, followed by Prussia, and both of these had territory inside and outside of the empire because it was complicated. Having been defeated by Napoleon, Francis gave up his title of Holy Roman Emperor, and the Holy Roman Empire itself was dissolved in 1806. Most of its former states, except notably Prussia and Austria, were brought into the Confederation of the Rhine, which was a French puppet state. The people that lived in these states were somewhat unhappy living under the dominance of France, and many quickly began to resent everything French. One way to counter French influence was to emphasize just how German they were. So, started religion, economics, and politics. So, long story short, after Napoleon had been defeated by the Russians, Prussia and Austria rose up against him, and by 1815 he had been firmly defeated. After Napoleon's defeat, the Congress of Vienna was called to establish and maintain a balance of power so that no country could become too powerful. This balance of power is known as the Concert of Europe. A man called Clemens von Metternich was very important to the establishment of this new order. Metternich was an Austrian diplomat who was instrumental in protecting Austria from Napoleon's harsher punishments. As a result of the Congress, Prussia gained this territory, most notably the Rhineland, and Austria gained this territory in Italy but lost the Austrian Netherlands. Importantly, the German Confederation was formed. It was led by a president who was also the Emperor of Austria, had these borders which included some of Prussia and Austria but not all of Prussia and Austria, but was also totally not the Holy Roman Empire under a different name. The German Confederation was quite a loose alliance, and as such was seen as quite weak in comparison to other powers such as France and Russia. This led to some calls for political unification, which would help protect the smaller German states and prevent a repeat of Napoleon. Prussia was keen on the idea of German unification because it, being the largest German state, would be in charge. In 1819, Prussia formed the proposals for a unified German state, Klein-Deutschland, which means small Germany, and Groß-Deutschland, which means large Germany. The difference was that Groß-Deutschland included the German-speaking parts of the Austrian Empire, whereas Klein-Deutschland did not. This idea of a shared ethnic, cultural and linguistic heritage or destination is an important part of nationalism. For more homogeneous places like Germany or Italy, nationalism was a uniting factor. For ethnically diverse empires such as Russia or Austria, it was a destabilizing force.
After the Napoleonic Wars, a German confederation was formed. However, it was ineffective at stopping the rivalry between Prussia and Austria, and calls for unification began to grow stronger. For instance, in 1832 there was a large festival at Hamsbach Castle supporting unification. In 1833 the Prussians formed the Zollverein, a customs union which gradually expanded and tied the economies of some German states together and away from Austria. But the calls for unification as well as liberal reforms grew louder and eventually caused the revolutions of 1848, which spread across Germany. These revolutions prompted liberals to meet in the Frankfurt Assembly and push for a united German constitution. They also tried to take over the conduct of the war which broke out between Prussia and Denmark over Schleswig-Holstein, but Frederick William IV of Prussia refused and signed an armistice with the Danes, allowing them to retain the disputed region. But in the Frankfurt Assembly, the debates continued on how Germany should be united. Some, mainly Catholics in the south, supported a greater Germany under the leadership of Austria, while Protestants in the north supported a lesser Germany under Prussia. Those supporting Prussian leadership won the vote and offered Frederick William IV the crown of Germany, but the conservative king refused a crown given to him by liberals. Meanwhile, the rebellions had subdued when many German states adopted their own constitution. Fast forward to 1861 and King Wilhelm I became King of Prussia, and he appointed Bismarck as his chancellor. Bismarck was quick to advocate that Prussia expand through blood and iron, but wanted to make sure that it remained authoritarian. In 1864 he took advantage of a constitutional crisis in Denmark and declared war, hoping to claim the disputed region of Schleswig-Holstein, and with the help of Austria the two states occupied the region. Bismarck then used the disputes in the region to start a war with Austria in 1866 and force the German states to divide in support of either side. With the help of the newly unified Italy, the Prussians emerged victorious and united the northern states into the Northern German Confederation, with the authoritarian Prussian leaders in control, making the Prussians the dominant force in the unification for Germany. The new confederation had only existed for a few years before disputed succession in Spain worsened their relations with France. Bismarck was able to provoke the French to declare war first in 1871, which gave him the support of the independent German states. The Germans crushed the French in battle and, in the Palace of Versailles, proclaimed Wilhelm I the new Emperor of Germany. The new empire took Alsace-Lorraine from the French and went on to become the dominant,
more experimentally than sure-footedly. Bismarck's specific moves to unite the many German states into a consolidated entity are now called negative integration, that is, building a community or nation by finding enemies or targeting certain categories of individuals to be outcasts. Negative integration is opposed to to positive integration based on acts like sharing values and building consensus among citizens. In the 1870s, Bismarck chose to harass, disadvantage, and insult Catholics with the idea of turning citizens against them and uniting Germany in opposition to Catholicism. The cluster of policies against Catholics was called Kulturkampf, and eventually Bismarck spread outrage among Germans, including Protestants, at the idea of upending religious toleration and making fellow citizens outcasts. Next, Bismarck targeted workers, especially Social Democrats, aka socialists.